bowing greetings to each one of my viewers in this channel, Holistic Health with Dr. Dev. I cordially welcome you all in this next chanting and discourse section or session of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, one of the fundamental root texts, foundational texts on the science of yoga. So today, as you see from the thumbnail image, we will be discussing chapter 15. Now, before we even begin any discussion on chapter 15, I want to share a quick fun fact regarding this chapter 15. It is, there are 18 chapters, like I have mentioned before in other sessions, 700 verses divided into 18 chapters. Among those, chapter 12, which is Bhakti Yoga, and chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga, these two chapters are the shortest in terms of length because each one of them have 20 verses. Okay, so today we will be chanting and discussing the meaning of the verses in one of the two shortest chapters in terms of length of the scripture, Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. So initially, if you have missed the previous two live sessions, we have discussed chapter 16 and chapter 17, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, that was chapter 16, and Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga, that was chapter 17. So we have already discussed those two chapters before in live sessions, and the videos are already posted in my channel, so please take a look. It is within the playlist of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita teachings, something like this, the name of the playlist. Please take a look. I will also post the link to that playlist in the description of this chapter as well, of this session as well. So without further ado, let's begin our discussion for today, this live session. So as usual, before going into the chanting of the verses of the shlokas, I will mention an overview of this chapter, chapter 15. Purushottama Yoga. Purushottama Yoga. Okay, so there are 20 verses, like I mentioned. So an overview of these verses will be, so in the verses 1 up to 3, Bhagavan gives a description of the samsara. Samsara, what is samsara? Samsara is the worldly affairs that going on, that go on in our in this material world. Samsara, the sum total of all that is going on in this material world is this samsara, which is one of the significant characteristics of samsara is it is bound by the cycle of birth and death, right? Or the people or the human the living beings which constitute the samsara, they are bound by the cycles of birth and death. So samsara, the whole sum of the totality of the material world happening around us that we conceive through our five senses. Verses 1 to 3, they talk about the description of samsara. If I go a little deeper, verse number 1 talk about the entire teaching of the Veda encapsulated in that first verse. Wow, that's powerful, right? Second and third verses that compare the vast and endless samsara with the mighty Ashvattha, the people tree, Ashvattha tree, right? Which is vast, the tree which is vast, many branched, well rooted, and not easily destructible, mysterious by nature, Ashvattha tree. Later on, Bhagavan also tells in the 10th chapter in the Vibhuti Yoga, the yoga of manifestation, that among all the trees, I am people tree, the Ashvattha tree. Anyway, so verses 4 and 5, they talk about the means of liberation or moksha. In particular, verse number 4 talks about developing detachment or vairagya from this samsara by recognizing its binding nature. Okay, that's verse number 4. Verse number 5 talks about the freedom from or the reaction towards the pairs of opposites, pride, delusion, and attachment, as well as a commitment to Vedantic inquiry. That is talked about in verse number 5. Then the nature of Brahman, has been talked about in verse number 6. Self-effulgent consciousness which illumines everything, realizing which one does not return to samsara. So the pure consciousness, the essence of every human being, that is the Brahman, the nature of the Brahman has been talked about in verse number 6. as I welcome my viewers in this channel, in this session also, I would like to know where you guys are joining from. So if you are willing, you can type in the comment section in the meantime as we give the overview. And once again, a cordial welcome to this live session of chapter 15 of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, Purushottama Yoga. So Brahman as Jiva, that is talked about in verses 7 to 11. Verses 7 to 9 talk about Brahman expressed as Jiva migrating through bodies and experiencing everything. Verses 10 and 11 talk about those two verses. Bhagavan alone is expressing in the form of the very life and its function in every being, realized by the pure minded. Realized by the pure minded. So we are housing that pure consciousness, each one of us, right? So that is being talked about in verses 10 and 11. Now, verses 12 to 15 talk about Brahman as the Jagat. Jagat means the world, right? So different 12 to 14, verses 12 to 14 talk about different manifestations through which Bhagavan sustained the living beings. And verse number 15 talks about the pure-minded ones recognize this, whereas the deluded ones do not. The pure-minded ones recognize that Bhagavan, the pure consciousness, Brahman, alone is expressing in the form of every life. But the deluded one, the Asuric ones, remember the Daivasura Sampad Vibhag Yog, the Asura Pravritti ones, they don't recognize this very fact. Okay, so then moving on to verses 16 to 18, that talk about Brahman as Purushottama. So Purushottama is a combination of two words, Purusha plus Uttama. Uttama means the supreme, the best. Purusha means, you can think of human beings here. Purusha literally means man, but here in this case the mankind. Purushottama means the best of the mankind. So verses 16 to 18 talk about the Brahman as the Purushottama. In particular, verse number 16 talk about the Kshara and the Akshara Purusha. Akshara means that does not corrode, that has no Kshara, means Kshaya, means decrease, that does not have any decrease. Akshara and Akshara Purusha, that has been talked about in verse number 16. 17 and 18 talk about Uttama Purusha, who is beyond these two Purusha, who is beyond this two Purusha. Okay, what are the two Purushas? The two Purushas are Kshara and Akshara Purushas. Uttama Purusha, who is beyond these two Purusha, called Paramatma or Purushottama. So the name of the chapter, remember? Name of the chapter is Purushottama Yoga. So, and finally, the verses 19 and 20 talk about the glory of the Purushottama Jnana. So, glorification of this knowledge as the means of fulfillment. As we know, whenever we run after the fulfillment of our sensory desires, that is never ending. It never ends. But Bhagavan here glorifies the seeker's pursuits to understand the essence of the pure consciousness of the Brahman, because that is, this knowledge is the means of ultimate fulfillment. Everything else, although when we satiate our senses, those are fulfillments, but those are temporary. They are subject to an end, a beginning and an end. And they bind us to this samsara even more. Whereas the pursuits to this knowledge of Brahmagyan, that is leading us to ultimate fulfillment. Okay, so this was an overview of chapter 15. Now I will actually move on to the chanting of the verses and a discussion of the meanings, a very brief overview discussion of the meanings. I should mention, by the way, that in these 20 verses, 15 are in Anushtup meter, which is what we have been listening to, and which is what Bhagavad Gita is mostly constituted of. The Anushtup meter means 32 syllables divided into 4 segments. So out of 700 verses, about 650 verses are in Anushtup meter, whereas about rest 50 or 45, 50 verses are in Trishtup meter, 44 syllables divided into 4 segments. So 11 times 4, 44. I should mention that in this chapter you will see 5 verses that will be in Trishtup meter, the rest 15 will be in Anushtup meter. We will see which ones as we proceed in the chanting part of it. So, okay, with that, shall we begin the chanting part? I would invite all of you to sit in a comfortably vertical position with a long spine, elongated spine, as Bhagavan says in the 6th chapter, the Dhyana Yoga, Yoga of Meditation, how the posture should be for meditation. It's the spine, the spinal column, head, and neck should be aligned in a vertical line, more or less, okay, comfortably so. So, you can focus on your breathing. We will start with 3 Onkar chantings, then we move on directly into the chapter, okay? So just focus on your breath. If you are sitting on a chair, please make sure your both feet are planted on the ground, okay? Just focus on your natural breathing, inhaling through the nostrils and exhaling through the nostrils. Few rounds of natural breathing, no need to change anything as yet. Now gradually you deepen the breath. You deepen the breath from the natural breathing to deep belly breathing. So inhaling, the belly goes out. Deep, long, smooth inhale. All the way up. Pause at the peak. Exhale, try to elongate the exhale longer than the inhale. Belly comes towards the spine. All the way, belly comes, deflates and comes towards the spine. Pause after the exhale. Inhale again. Deep, long, smooth. All the way. All the way up. Belly goes outside, belly swells out. Pause at the peak. Exhale, belly comes towards the spine. Relax. In the next 3 exhales, we will chant 3 Omkars sounds. The Pranavaha, Tasya Vachakaha Pranavaha, as Maharshi Patanjali talks about in the Yoga Sutras. The way to address Ishvara is the sound Om. So we will begin our chanting session also as usual with 3 Omkar chantings. Inhaling deep, long, smooth. All the way up. Pause at the peak. Exhale. Two more times. Inhaling deep, long, smooth. All the way up. Pause at the peak. Exhale. Last time. Inhaling deep, long, smooth. Belly swells out all the way. Pause at the peak. Exhale. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now we are beginning the chanting part. Atha Panchadashodhyayah Purushottama Yoga. Now begins the 15th chapter. The name is Purushottam Yoga. Purushottama Yoga. Purushottama Yoga. Chapter 15. One of the two shortest chapters of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. Only 20 verses. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Urdhvamulam Madhashakam Ashvatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi yasya paranani Yastam Veda Savedavit. I will chant each verse twice. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Urdhvamulammadhashakam Ashvatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi yasya paranani Yastam Veda Savedavit. What is the meaning? The blessed Lord said, they speak of an eternal Ashvattha, rooted above and branching below, whose leaves are the Vedas. He who knows it is a Veda knower. Ashvattha, literally, that which does not endure until tomorrow. That which does not endure till tomorrow. The samsara, the ever-changing phenomenal world, is considered as the Ashvattha. So the blessed Lord said, they speak of an eternal Ashvattha tree, the people tree, rooted above and branching below, whose leaves are the Vedas. He who knows it is a Veda knower. Next, now we begin the Trishtuk meter chants. So verse number 2, 3, 4, 5 back to back are in the Trishtuk meter, which is 11 times 4, 44 syllables. Look. Adhaschordhvam prasritat Adhaschordhvam prasritastasya shakhaha Guna pravriddha vishaya pravalaha Adhascha mulanyanusantatani Karamanubandhini manushya-loke Adhaschordhvam prasritastasya shakhaha Guna pravriddha vishaya pravalaha Adhascha mulanyanusantatani Karamanubandhini manushya-loke. What does it mean? Below and above spread its branches, the Ashvattha tree, nourished by the gunas, the three gunas, remember, Sattva, Raja and Tama. Sense objects are its buds. The buds means the kuri, the buds from which the flowers emerge. And below, in the human world, stretch forth the roots originating action. Below and above spread its branches, nourished by the gunas. Sense objects are its buds, and below in the human world stretch forth the roots originating action, the karma. Okay. Below means from mankind downwards, and above means up to Brahman. Roots, the tap root is the Lord above. The secondary roots are the sanskars or karmic imprints, attachment, aversion, etc. It is these that, being in perpetual succession, the cause and consequence of good and evil deeds, bind one fast to actions, dharma and adharma. Okay. From where the karma originated, that binds us to fast to the actions, which are some are dharmic, some are adharmic. Anyway, so I will chant the verses 3 and 4 together before discussing the meaning, because they are related. Narupamasyeha tathopalabhyate नान्तो न चादेर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा न रूपमस्येह तथोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा. Verse number 4. ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यम् यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्तिः प्रसृता पुराणी. ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यम् यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्तिः प्रसृता पुराणी. What does it mean? Verses 3 and 4. Its form is not here perceived as such, neither its end, nor its origin, nor its existence. Having cut asunder this firm-rooted Ashvattha with the strong axe of non-attachment, then that goal is to be sought for, going whither they, the wise, do not return again. I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha whence streamed forth the eternal activity. I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha whence streamed forth the eternal activity. Okay, the eternal activity means the ever-passing work of projection, this ever-flowing current of evolution, the world of phenomena, means this material world. Okay, so we are talking about Bhagavan, Sri Bhagavan is talking about the different characteristics of that Ashvattha tree that he introduced at the beginning. Moving forward, we will chant the verse number 5. Nirmana mohajita sanga doshaha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha sangyaihi गच्छन्त्यमूढाः पदमव्ययं तत् निर्मानमोहाजितसङ्गदोषाः अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामाः द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ताः सुखदुःखसंज्ञैः गच्छन्त्यमूढाः पदमव्ययं तत्. Free from pride and delusion, free from pride and delusion, with the evil of attachment conquered, ever dwelling in the self, with desires completely receded, liberated from the pairs of opposites known as pleasure and pain, the undeluded reach that goal eternal. Free from pride and delusion, with the evil of attachment conquered, ever dwelling in the self, with desires completely receded, liberated from the pairs of opposites known as pleasure and pain, the undeluded reach that goal eternal. Okay, so that was verse number 5. We are talking about Purushottama Yoga, chapter 15 of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. Verse 6, we are back to Anushtup meter from verse 6 again. Look. न तद्भासयते सूर्यः न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम. न तद्भासयते सूर्यः न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम paramam mama. That the sun illumines not, nor the moon, nor fire, that is my supreme abode, going whither they return not. That the sun illumines not, nor the moon, nor fire, that is my supreme abode, going whither they return not. They means the wise one, the wise seekers who seek for that Brahma Gyan, that knowledge, supreme knowledge. Okay, moving forward, verse number 7. ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षते ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति. What does it mean? Verse 7. An eternal portion of myself having become a living soul, an eternal portion of myself, Sri Bhagavan Krishna is saying, of myself having become a living soul in the world of life, draws to itself the five senses with mind for the sixth, abiding in Prakriti. So it draws in its shell like a tortoise gets in himself or herself into its own shell. So an eternal portion of myself, having become a living soul in the world of life, draws the senses with mind for the sixth, the Ubhayendriya, right? Mind is both Jnanendriya, the sensory organ, and the Karmendriya, the organ of action, abiding in Prakriti. Everybody is bound in their own Prakriti. Okay. So that was verse number 7. Moving on, verse number 8. Shariraya yadavapnoti yachapyutkramati gृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात् शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्. It means, when the Lord obtains a body and when he leaves it, he takes these and goes as the wind takes the scents from their seeds, the flowers. When the Lord obtains a body and when he leaves it, he takes these and goes as the wind takes the scents from their seeds, which are the flowers. So moving on to verse number 9. Kshrotrang chakshusparshanang cha rasanang ghranameva cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. Shrotrang chakshusparshanang cha rasanang ghranameva cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. Verse number 9. Presiding over the ear, the eye, the touch, the taste, and the smell, as also the mind, he experiences objects. How a living being experiences objects is, of course, through these five sensory organs with the help of the mind. Because if mind is not attached to these senses, the senses won't work. For example, you might be listening to me, but if the mind is not attached to our ears, we are not listening. We are just hearing some vibrations. Okay, so presiding over the ear, the eye, the touch, the taste, and the smell, the pancha jnanendriya, as also the mind, which is called the ubhayendriya, the dual organ of senses and organ of action, he experiences, the Bhagavan who enters this body, he experiences objects. The objects are the different material things in this material world. Okay, moving on to verse number 10. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. while transmigrating from one body to another, or residing in the same, or experiencing, or when united with the gunas, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, the deluded do not see him. But those who have the eye of wisdom behold him. Him is with capital Him, is the supreme consciousness, the pure consciousness. While transmigrating from one body to another, meaning while being a part of this birth and death cycles in this samsara, or residing in the same, or experiencing, or when united with the gunas, means sattva, rajatama, being under the influence of the three gunas, the deluded person, the mohagrasta means the person who are taken over by delusion with ignorance. The deluded do not see him, do not understand the nature of our true existence, the pure Brahman, right? But those who have the eye of wisdom behold him. Okay, so moving forward, verse number 11. Yatanto yoginaschainam pasyantyatmanyavasthitam yatantopyakritatmanaha nainam pasyantyachetasaha yatanto yoginaschainam pasyantyatmanyavasthitam yatantopyakritatmanaha nainam pasyantyachetasaha. This means the yogis striving for perfection behold him, the supreme consciousness, dwelling in themselves. But the unrefined and unintelligent, even though striving, see him not, because they might be climbing the ladder, but the ladder might be going to the different destination, not to the destination of the real knowledge of knowing oneself, of one's true nature. So the yogis striving for perfection behold him dwelling in themselves. Him means the pure consciousness. But the unrefined and unintelligent, even though striving, see him not. Okay, so verse number 12. Yadadityagatante tejaha jagadbhasayate yacchandramasi yacchagrau yacchandramasi yacchagnau tattejo vidhi mamakam. Yadadityagatan tejaha jagadbhasayate yacchandramasi yacchagnau tattejo vidhi mamakam. One more time. Yadadityagatan tejaha jagadbhasayate yacchandramasi yacchagnau tattejo vidhi mamakam. So verse number 12 means the light which residing in the sun illumines the whole world. That which is in the moon and in the fire, know that light to be mine. The light which residing in the sun illumines the whole world. That which is in the moon and in the fire, know that light to be mine. Bhagavan is saying, the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan Krishna here. So verse number 13. Gamavishya cha bhutani dharayamyahmojasa pushnami chaushadhe sarvah somo bhutva rasatmakah. Gamavishya cha bhutani dharayamyahmojasa pushnami chaushadhe sarvah somo bhutva rasatmakah. Gamavishya cha bhutani dharayamyahmojasa pushnami chaushadhe sarvah somo bhutva rasatmakah. Entering the earth with my energy, I support all beings and I nourish all the herbs, becoming the watery moon with the somras. Somras comes from the moonlight, the moon. Okay, so with Sri Bhagavan's effulgence, energy, everything is getting nourished. Moving on to verse 14. Very popular verse, this one. So please pay attention to this particular verse. Chapter 15, verse 14. Aham vaishvanaro bhutva praninan dehamashritah pranapana samaयुक्तः pachamyannan chaturvidham. Aham vaishvanaro bhutva praninan dehamashritah pranapana samayuktah pachamyannan chaturvidham. One more time, this one. Aham vaishvanaro bhutva praninan dehamashritah pranapana samayuktah pachamyannan chaturvidham. So what does it mean? This one means abiding in the body of living beings as Vaishwanaraha. I associated with prana and apana. These are two of the five vayus. Prana vayu, which is coming, taking the energy from outside to in, like our breathing, inhaling. And apana vayu is our downward going movement, downward facing movements, like the secretion of the excreta and all that, whichever vayu is responsible for that, apana vayu. So I associated with prana and apana, digest the fourfold food. What are the fourfold food? Charva, choshya, lehya, and peya. Charva means that you chew, choshya means that you suck, lehya means that you lick, and peya means that you drink. I am the Agni inside of each living being, the Jataragni and the other 12 Agnis that we have, Panchabhutagni and Saptadhatu Agni. Bhagavan is that expression of that Agni that digests the four kinds of food. Now moving on to verse 15. Now you see 15, one second. Yes, moving on to verse 15. This 15th verse is also in Trishtup meter. So previously we chanted 4 verses 2 to 5 in Trishtup meter. This is the 5th and the last verse, which is in Trishtup meter, verse number 15. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishtaha matta smritir jnanam apohanancha vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyaha vedanta kridveda videva chaham sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishtaha matta smritir jnanam apohanancha vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyaha vedanta kridveda videva chaham sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishtaha matta smritir jnanam apohanancha vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyaha vedanta kridveda videva chaham. I am centered in the hearts of all. Memory and perception as well as their loss come from me. I am verily that which has to be known by all the Vedas. I indeed am the author of the Vedanta, and the knower of the Veda am I. Bhagavan is saying something similar to like in the Vibhuti Yoga, the 10th chapter, when Bhagavan talks about his manifestation, opulent manifestations, something similar to here, right? So verse number 16, moving on. Dvavimau purushau loke ksharaschakshara eva cha ksharas sarvani bhutani kutastokshara uchyate. Dvavimau purushau loke ksharaschakshara eva cha ksharas sarvani bhutani kutastokshara uchyate. Dvavimau purushau loke ksharaschakshara eva cha ksharas sarvani bhutani Kutasthokshara uchyate. Let's do one more time. Dvavimau purushau loke ksharashchakshara evacha ksharasarvani bhutani kutasthoksharat uchyate. 16th verse. What does it mean? There are two Purushas in the world, the perishable and the imperishable, that I was saying, which declines and which does not decline. All beings are the perishable. All beings are the perishable ones, which of course ends, decays, right? And the Kutastha is called the imperishable. The Kutastha means that which manifests itself in various forms of illusion and deception. It is said to be imperishable. Why? As the seed of samsara is endless, in the sense that it does not perish in the absence of Brahma Gyan. One who does not have the Brahma Gyan, in that absence, it does not perish. It keeps on going. The seed of samsara, one seed brings forth the fruits for the seeds of another samsara cycle of birth and death. Okay, so there are two Purushas in the world, the perishable and the imperishable. All beings are the perishable, and the Kutastha is called the imperishable. Okay, so this was verse 16. Moving on to verse 17. Uttamah purushastvanyah paramatmetyudahritah yo lokatrayamavishya bibhartyavyaya ishwarah. Uttamah purushastvanyah paramatmetyudahritah yo lokatrayamavishya bibhartyavyaya ishwarah. Uttamah purushastvanyah paramatmetyudahritah yo lokatrayamavishya bibhartyavyaya ishwarah. What does it mean? But there is another, the supreme Purusha, called the highest self, the immutable Lord. Immutable means that does not change, who pervading the three worlds, Swarga, Marta and Patal, the three lokas, right? Swarga is the divine loka of the celestial beings, Marta means these mortal beings, Patala means of the asuras, the rakshasas, right? But there is another, the supreme Purusha, called the highest self, the immutable Lord, who pervading the three worlds sustains them, nourishes them. Okay, which is quite distinct than the Kshara and the Akshara Purusha. Okay, so the three worlds are also mentioned in the Gayatri mantra. Remember, Bhur Bhuva Suvaha. So Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha. Bhuhu means the earth, Bhuvaha means the mid region, right? And Suvaha means the heaven. Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha. The three lokas here. You can also think of it that way. So anyway, so that was verse number 17. Now moving on to the last three verses. Verse 18. Yasmat ksharamati aksharaadapi chottamaha atosmi loke vede cha prathitah purushottamaha. Yasmat ksharamati aksharaadapi chottamaha atosmi loke vede cha prathitah purushottamaha. Yasmat ksharamati aksharaadapi chottamaha atosmi loke vede cha prathitah purushottamaha. 18. What does it mean? As I transcend the perishable and am above even the imperishable, therefore am I in the world and in the Veda celebrated as the Purushottama, the highest kind, the highest Purusha. Okay, Purushottama. Purushanam Uttamaha means among all the Purushas, that is the best. So Bhagavan is saying that. You see, the whole chapter Bhagavan himself is speaking in here. So, number 19th, the second last shloka. Yo mameva sammudhaha janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. Yo mameva sammudhaha Janati Purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata yo mamevama sammudhaha janati Purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. He who, free from delusion, thus knows me, the highest spirit, he knowing all worships me with all his heart. O descendant of Bharata, which is Bharata, is referred to Arjuna. Okay, Bhagavan is saying. Now the very last verse of this chapter 15. Listen to this carefully. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. Thus, O sinless one, anagha means without any sin. Thus, O sinless one, has this most profound teaching been imparted by me, Bhagavan is saying to Arjuna. Knowing this, this means this knowledge, one attains the highest intelligence and will have accomplished all one's duties. One who knows this knowledge of this supreme self will have accomplished all one's duties, means there will be nothing else anymore left to do. O descendant of Bharata, means Arjuna. Again, Bharata. Krishna refers to Arjuna as Bharata. Bharata in both verses 17 and 18. So the last verse I will say again, chant again. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. Om Tatsaditi Shrimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yoga Nama Panchadashodhyayaha. Om Tatsaditi Shrimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yoga Nama Panchadashodhyayaha. So this was our chanting and just the quick meaning discussion of chapter 15. I will post the resource link like other chapters where you can find the lyrics in different online available resources. You will find the Sanskrit verses for freely available in the web. You can also find several suggestions of the books that I found very helpful during my studies. So with that, we will bring this session to a close. So chanting one Omkar and a small chant. Inhaling all the way up. Pause. Exhale. Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in this live session. I hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you for posting comments. I see some comments posted. Thank you so much. And I welcome you all to take a look at the playlist that I will put the link in this description of this video once it's posted in my channel after this session. Take a look. There are other chapters where I have also discussed other chapters and some explained detailed lessons also posted especially for chapter 1. Do take a look in those videos also. And with that, I would also like to mention that if you would like to learn the chanting of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita or Maharshi Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, or learn Vedic chanting or some other chanting on a one-on-one basis or in a semi-private or in a group class basis, please get in touch with me. You can get in touch with me via any social media link: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You will find those links of my social media in the description below or in my description of my channel. Please contact me. I look forward to get connected with you and see how I can serve your learning interests or satiate your learning interests. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Do share this video with as many people, your loved ones, whoever you think would benefit from these discussions and would enjoy these chanting sessions. Just by listening these vibrations will have a significant impact in our daily life, in our life in general. Thank you so much. Do comment in the comment section what else would you like me to bring as teachings like this in the live sessions or in recorded sessions. I would love to respond to you to the best of my capabilities. Thank you. Take care. Hari Om Tat Sat.